Okay, so now we'll be taking up the bones, tibia and fibula. We have completed femur yesterday and we started a bit of tibia. Yeah. So now there was this confusion whether tibia is on the thumb side or the little finger side when we are taking with reference to the foot. Like we have seen the analogy with respect to the humerus and the palm. So in not the humerus, sorry, the radius and the ulna. So in case of foot, when we have seen yesterday, this tibia lies medially directed and it is medially located with respect to fibula, as in tibia is towards the thumb side. So with reference to thumb of your foot, you can locate the tibia and the epicondyles, and the distal end of the tibia could be associated medially, that is in the side of the thumb. And on the contrary, when we're talking about fibula, it is laterally located. Therefore, towards the side of your little finger, we can identify fibula. Fine. So we have seen how the picture looks like. Now in this also you will be taking up the two diagrams, the interior as well as the posterior views of tibia. You have to draw these two views. Firstly, let's see what the definition or the identification of or the major landmarks of tibia is. It's a major weight bearing bone of your lower leg, although it's like not heavy as femur, not massive like femur, not strong bone like femur, but when you see in your lower leg, below the femur till your foot, you have the very strong bone which is tibia, whereas on the contrary fibula is quite thin bone in comparison to tibia. So tibia is strong and heavy, and that robust look could be identified between the tibia and the fibula. Tibia has it. Now it articulates proximally with the distal femur. So the distal end of the femur articulates with the tibia, twice laterally with the fibula, once proximally and once distally. So from the head also it is associated with fibula, and from the distal end also it is, the bones are set together, and distally with the talus. First important landmark is the tibial plateau. Let's see from the view. Okay, when we have seen femur, the bottom or the distal end of the femur had different condyles, and the medial condyles, or there was a sort of a groove like structure which has an articulation for the tibia. So therefore the tibial plateau on the head or the proximal side of the tibia is basically the place where the femur rests upon, or the femur is setted into, not like a lock and key, but it sets upon it. Because here we cannot see any fossa like structure, we cannot see any depression where the condyles or the other part of the femur could be locked into. So it's just the surface where the upper bone or the femur is being set upon, right? It is divided into two articular sections, one for each femoral condyles. Now we had seen a structure of both the lateral and the medial condyles. So those two condyles basically sets upon the tibial plateau. In life, there are fibrocartilaginous rings around the periphery of these articular facets, the medial and the lateral menisci. So we have cartilage association between the two bones, which sets them together. Then we have the medial and as well as the lateral condyles. Now the medial condyle is the medial part of the tibial plateau, Fine, as the name itself says, its femoral articulation is oval with its long axis oriented anterior posteriorly. Its lateral edge is straight. So see, this entire structure, look, I cannot look, let's see, this entire structure is called as tibial plateau. It looks like a plateau-like structure, right? And on one end we have the medial condyle and one end we have the lateral condyles, where both the places there is the location or the setting up of the femur bone. When it was saying with respect to medial condyles, the lateral edge of the medial condyle is straight, whereas when we took the lateral condyle, it's the lateral part of the tibial plateau, lateral as in directed outwards. Its femoral articulation is smaller and rounder than the medial articulation. With respect to medial condyle, their articulation is smaller and rounder, whereas in this case it was oval in shape with a long axis. So now you can see the difference. This represents the medial condyle, and here before this intercondylar, or say, yeah, the eminence between the two condyles, the plateau-like structure towards directed outside of the, laterally directed, is the lateral condyle. Fine. Also, one important landmark when we were discussing yesterday with respect to the medial malaise. Now this is directed medially, like towards the center of your body. So therefore, while identifying whether it's a right or a left bone, you can keep this as an important marker. If you locate the head with tuberosity on the front, like on the anterior side, the tuberosity on the front, see, if you see the back side, there is no tuberosity at the center. Rather, there's a depression, or say, a groove-like structure. Yeah, a groove-like structure. So on the posterior view, do not get a tuberosity. So locating on the front view, the anterior view gets you the tuberosity. And second thing is with respect to the medial malleus. Now third, or some specifications are with respect to the head. Like while you see the bone by yourself, you can see the back side and the front side. You can make a distinction clearly, but like in the figure, probably it's going to be real tough. So here, this forms a groove-like structure at the back. So aage se you can make a clear distinction ki it has some face-like structure, whereas on the back it's more snake-like face, snake-like head from the back side. Like say here, it's a snake, a cobra-like posture, isn't it? So this head resembles a cobra-like structure, and this view is identified from the posterior side, whereas on the other side we have the anterior view with quite robust, or say quite tuberosity-like structure on the head or on the neck portion, which is called as tibial tuberosity. Very important to identify the bone itself. Fine, so lateral and the medial condyles are pretty clear. Now the tibial tuberosity, it's a rugose area on the anterior surface, specifically on the anterior surface of the proximal tibia. Its superior part is smoothest and widest. Then there is the patellar ligament of the quadriceps femoris muscle, a major lower leg extension at the knee, which inserts here. So tuberosity again, like if you will, let me zoom it. So here also you can see a sort of stretch marks, isn't it? A sort of impression. Like we discussed yesterday, when you have an impression or these markings on the bone, and in case it is not straight, not flat surface like the femoral head or the humerus ka head, in that case that is fitted like a lock and key structure. But in this case, every impression indicates the attachment of a muscle or of a ligament or of some tissue attachment, cartilage attachment, for facilitating the movement or the proper functioning of a given joint, right? So for example, here there was the cartilage attachment because we had the joint here with the femur. Then there is also the patellar arrangement set up here. So all these things have to be kept in mind while we are talking with respect to the impressions on the bones, right? So this is very important. Tibial tuberosity, very important to identify whether it's an anterior view or the posterior view. Fine. Then Then we have a fibular notch. Again, very important. Why? Because fibula is also set in with respect to the tibia, right? So there are two bones in the lower leg, fibula and tibia. So the fibular notch, which is present in tibia, it's a distolateral corner of the tibia, as in lateral as in outside, distal means bottom. So at the bottom towards the lateral side corner of the tibia, we have the fibular notch. It's a triangular, non-articular area of the thick, short, introitious tibio-fibular ligament. Now, again, nomenclature on the basis of the two bones between which it is associated. This ligament binds the distal tibia and the fibula together as a unit at its syndesmosis. The proximal ankle or the talocrural joint. This name you can remember probably. The proximal ankle, or the talocrural joint is formed by the tightly bound distal tibia and fibula, which articulates with the superior medial lateral talar surfaces. Let me show you the fibular notch in the view. This is the lateral view. I want to show you in the posterior view, let's say. Not observable in the posterior or the anterior view, but yeah, in the lateral view it has the fibular notch. This is the medial view, this is the lateral view here. So we have a fibular notch. Now you can see again not a notch or some projection, but a slight depression like structure. Slight depression, not a notch that we have seen in the other bones, but a slight depression. Again, with respect to shaft, if you will see here also, we can see the facilitating of the muscles being attached here with respect to tibia, the distal end of the tibia, and also the notch facilitating the attachment for fibula. This shaft structure of this shaft is also because of the attachment of fibula, like a very small end of fibula. It's a very thin bone. Fibula is a very thin bone. So when you see the bottom, like the bottom of the fibula, it looks like it fits in here properly. Okay, so this is how the fibular notch in the tibia looks like. Now keep this in mind when we'll be talking about fibula. So how the distal end of fibula is going to fit into the distal end of tibia is going to be interesting, right? So this is about tibia. Next on we'll be taking fibula. Let me show you the bone. It's a very thin bone, see, very thin bone. So again, two important views, the right fibula as well, the anterior as well as the posterior view. We are not going into detail looking into medial and the lateral view, so you can skip on that. Now let's study the bone fibula. It's a long thin bone which lies lateral to the tibia, articulating twice with it, once with the talus. Okay, so twice with the tibia it is articulating at the head as well as in the distal end, the proximal end as well as the distal end, and once with respect to the talus. Although this bone plays only an indirect role in the knee joint, an indirect role, so it is not properly fixed into but set all together, serving to anchor the ligaments to play a key role in forming the lateral border of the ankle joint. So when we were yesterday talking about the ankle joint, basically it was the fibula that we can see the protuberance over our ankle, because that's the lateral border of the fibula. The fibula bears very little weight, not even touching the femur at its superior end. Fine. Then let's take the fibular head first. It's a swollen proximal end of the fibula, more massive and less mediolaterally flattened than the distal end. Let's see. This is the fibular head. Yeah, this is the fibular head. Now see, it's completely different from all the other bones. Like if you are given firstly a radius bone and a fibula, very clearly using the radial head you can identify the radius bone. Now probably, like, I think I have discussed many aspects of the bone, so now with respect to the head properly you can distinguish, although there could be some overlapping observation with respect to the distal end, but with respect to head probably it's going to be clear. Regarding ulna also, ulna ka to like head is entirely different. Then with respect to tibia it is different. Femur and humerus are quite heavy, so with respect to robustness you can clearly distinguish between those heavy bones and this light bone. But when, let's say, radius and ulna is given, or femur, not tibia but fibula is given, so out of the three you can measure the length. Based on the length also you can see, because it's a long bone, and of the lower leg you can assume that it's going to be longer. For example, in lab-based setting, now you are not given these specimens from the same person, right? So what happens in that case, you probably could get a massive ulna radius and a weak fibula that ways. So in that case, again, the distinction could be difficult in case you do not know the head. Like on the basis of robustness, you cannot clearly demarcate the three in that situation. So you have to identify the head of all the three. You have to understand, like in ulna it's properly like what a hook like structure of the head. Then in radius it's very flat like the top of the bottle. Then in this case it's entirely different, so the three could be easily distinguished. Now in case of fibular head, as it says, it's a swollen proximal end of the fibula, a swollen end with a styloid process on the lateral side directing towards laterally. And then we have a proximal fibular articular surface as a part of the fibular head, right? Again, facilitates the bicep femoris muscle for attachment and the lateral collateral ligament of the knee. Next is the styloid process within the fibular head itself, or the apex of the fibular bone. It is most proximal projection of the bone, forming the posterior part of the head. Most proximal projection of the bone. So most proximal projection directed laterally. Like again, you can see that it is some projection like structure, right? So styloid process that ways. Then there is a fibular neck which extends from the shaft and flares proximally to meet the fibular head, right? It extends from the shaft to meet the fibular head. Now also you can see that muscle attachment is leaving a very good impression on the bone. Like here you can see this is all because of the muscle attachment and also the wear and tear of the bone, but more or less it's the attachment of the muscles that gives this straight impression. Fine. Then we have the fibular shaft. It's the long, thin, fairly straight segment of the bone between the expanded proximal and the distal ends. The shaft is divided into three named surfaces by the three named borders of the margins, which is the anterior, lateral, and the posterior borders. And this we are not going to detail, but you can see it this way. See now how to identify whether it's a right or a left bone. So first you have to see this head with a styloid process, if it's directing medially or laterally. So you have to locate it being directed outwards, right? Then here we have the malleus, which is very important, which should again be laterally located, not medially directed. Fine, so this is very important. Then also with respect to the shaft, there's a very oblique ridge, the thin and very prominent ridge going through the shaft, which is observed on the anterior surface. If you will see on the posterior surface, this ridge is not that sharp, not clearly pointed or in the center of the bone. Fine, in the posterior view you can clearly make this distinction that when styloid process is here directing medially, so this is again the posterior view, or the lateral malleus is medially located, then again it's not the anterior view, that's the posterior view. So that distinction you can make on the distal as well as the proximal end, both ways, the styloid process as well as the malleus, right? So this is going to be easy interpretation of right and left. Then the other landmark, probably in this we are not going to have a significant landmark, only with respect to the head or the bottom, only that. Also, we can take this up, the lateral malleus, because again it's a very important landmark in the distal end. So it is the inferior most distal most projection of the fibula. Its lateral non-articular surface is subcutaneous, forming the lateral knob of the ankle. Very important. Like yesterday we got confused with the medial malleus of tibia and the right, we were associating it with the ankle, so that was not correct. In fact, it's the lateral malleus of the fibula. So in case if I ask you to identify the knob that we see at the ankle, or say the elbow joint that we can see, you know, in the hand, which is the posterior head of the ulna. So that distinction has to be made. Which bone do you understand, how it is associated, how it is oriented in your hand or in your leg. So that association, that orientation must be now clear to you, at least where is being projected, what is being, you know, seen in the wrist or the bracelet crease. Above that there is a projection. Which bone's end is it? Is it the radius bone or is it the ulnar bone? How do you understand both of them? If you identify it correctly, then probably you are on the right way. Then we have the malleolar fossa. Now it's located just posterior to the distal articular surface, again for the attachment of the transverse tibiofibular and the posterior talofibular ligaments, which strengthen the ankle joint. Right, so this is it. Yeah, this is it about all the bones. Any confusion, feel free to ask. Yeah, I'll show you the malleolar fossa once. Yeah, this is the malleolar fossa between again, fossa means a depression like structure for the attachment of talus, as well as for the attachment of the other ligaments between the tibia and the fibula. So the facilitating the attachment of the ligament as well as for the talus muscles. Fine. And so only two view, the posterior and the anterior view. That's it. Thank you.